Hello, hello, hello. Oh my gosh.
Hello.
I gave you 3 hellos. And you give me 1 hello. Like where is the vim? The vim.
Hello. Do you remember hello?
Hello.
Yeah.
I remember that. Oh my god. It was with what was that guy's name? Was it Sylvie?
I've forgotten.
But yeah, it was one of those things that we were forced to watch because there wasn't that much there wasn't what's it called? There wasn't a lot of options on channels, but Allo used to come on, and it was like fun family time viewings with the French, and gosh, it was just such a long time ago.
I know. I feel like it used to come on Sundays.
Was it
Sunday night? I don't know why I'm thinking that, but Sunday night. And you know what? I want to Google it after this episode. I feel like hello it wasn't like real French people.
Really?
Let me Google it as we speak.
René à toi, René.
I feel like it was a British series,
Production company BBC.
What?
Guys. Oh my goodness.
These people.
It's a British sitcom television. 85 episodes. This original release was from the 30th of December, 1982. Jeez. Renee.
Oh my God. Do you think maybe it's offensive to French people?
I wonder, actually, because how do you feel being portrayed by the Brits in such a way? Like, I don't remember, like, how they used to portray them, but, it's literally the accents, the names, Renee, the way they used to pronounce things. Because I didn't know any better. I genuinely thought that they were French.
Yeah.
The garlic, the cheese. Oh, geez, it was something else.
No, it'll be it. Now I'm deep into Wikipedia. Yo, the Brits, hey. But anyway, have you been?
Yeah, I've been good. How have you been?
I have been good.
You've been very quiet.
Life has been lifing.
Life has been lifing. But you're okay.
Yeah, no, I am well in Jesus' name.
So does that count as toxic positivity?
What?
Saying I am well. In Jesus' name. Like I noticed you do that a lot. Like I'll ask you a question and then you hide behind, something, or it will be well kind of thing. I need to re-listen to that toxic positivity episode and re-educate myself. Anyway, the main thing is you're okay.
Yes.
And that you are dealing with whatever you're dealing with, and you're dealing it with it well, and you're not engaging in any toxic engagements.
What are you on about?
I will not air out your business on this podcast.
You better
I know
not.
you. I won't. I never do. But anyway, we should introduce ourselves for those people who are listening for the very first time.
Yes. Welcome to Girl and Guys podcast with me, Natasha.
And Xolie.
I sometimes go by Nat.
I sometimes go by Xolie.
Okay.
I sometimes go by Michelle.
Xolie.
Michelle, darling.
Xolie.
Yeah. So what's been happening? How's your week been? How's work? So I noticed you went into work a few days ago.
I physically went into the office for the first time since March 2020.
Wow. How was that? What was that like?
It was weird, like being on the tube, all masked up, like is just something else. But I think what I noticed is, there's some people who are just not masking up at all.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is truly medical exemptions or, it's a political statement.
Asthmatic.
That is being made. But yeah, then yeah, went to the office. It was dead. But to be fair, there were a few people. It was okay, but honestly, I am not sold on this going back to the office propaganda that capitalists keep.
Guys, were you anxious traveling into work and stuff?
Um, a little bit, but I think I had just had so much that had been going on that actually like going into the office was kind of like a welcome break.
Right.
So it
Gives you
kind of
something else to focus on.
exactly. It kind of felt like, oh, a trip to the city.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I feel like the whole working in the office is a scam. I was looking forward to it because I like when for the whole of March. Was it March? Yeah. When I started this job, I was working from home, and then they started gradually introducing us back into the workspace. And I was like, oh, it'd be so nice to meet up with everybody, blah, blah, blah. But now I'm like, no, actually, the travel time, um, that's time that you could be productive and doing things. And also, I miss just rolling out of my bed into putting on a nice shirt and with my pajama bottoms, guys, it's heaven. It's heaven. For these meetings, you just pinch your cheeks, look alive, but you literally just gotten out of bed. But yeah, anyway, here we are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a minute, but we can do our previous episode comments.
Yes. And apologies, guys. Life has been lifing. Like we've been consistent since February. And yeah. So apologies that we've skipped weeks here and there. Like, just know that our spirits are willing for sometimes. Yeah. Which actually gets me to the point of at some point we will be taking a break. We need to figure out when. So we will be taking a break because we've been going nonstop since February. So yeah, but not now, not like next week or whatever.
No. But in the future, in the next few months, probably.
Yeah, but in the next few. But as always, our Patreon guys, you guys will get your monthly, and also you'll get some behind the scenes scoop.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Give us time to recharge and gather information.
I need to gather content.
Content creation happens when we're on breaks because wow. And I'm sure by the time we come back, when we take our break and come back, we'll have loads and loads of stuff to catch up on.
Yes. But the break is not now. You guys don't have to worry about it. But just we are thinking out aloud. Okay, so the previous episode which you put out was "Send Me Food, Baba," which was episode 85 or something.
I think so.
I think this was the episode where we talked about the the long paragraph.
Episode 84. Sorry,
it was 84. The paragraph that someone put out, well, a response to a request for money sending food. And then we also talked a little bit about property. So just some comments that I saw. So at Cray Kuku Umatandizinto on Twitter said, "At Gallon's Guys, another great episode. Looking forward to the property podcast. Have much to learn and look forward to hearing about your experience."
And at Nessa Madge was like, really enjoyed the recent episode at Golden Skies. Looking forward to your next episodes on property. I'm just at the beginning of my journey. Can't wait to learn.
And then the Usher gates, Justin Timberlake.
Oh my God. So we promise you guys in one of our next episodes, that's something that we're going to do. We'll do the Usher v. Justin Timberlake just to prove Natasha
Did you
wrong.
just commit to, no, but wait, did you commit me to a Justin? Wait.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you mean? No, I didn't. No, you're absolutely right. I did not commit you. You committed yourself.
Okay. So anyway, listen, I'm gonna take it on the chin, be a team player, and
Whole team player. Just say that you have seen and you have acknowledged that what you said was actually propaganda.
Okay. I now have to see this through, because I know I had a few DMs for some people who were like, you know what?
Who said they know? You know what? What did they say?
They were like, you know what, Natasha, Usher is the GOAT, like uncle, but in terms of who would be a good versus, they were like, you're right. Man, like JT.
Show us the V11s. Show us the V11s. Anyway, guys, we promise you, Usher v JT. But we're gonna bring JT down.
Okay, fine. I will do the rigged Usher v JT. So you have to prepare. But we also said we're gonna do a 90s versus 80s.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We're gonna do a 90s versus 80s, and then we said we're going to do platform 1 versus, we'll think about it.
Dalum Kids.
Was it Dalum? But I feel like there's another group other than Dalum Kids that probably would do better. Or we can do like Mafigizolo versus Malaika. Or this reminds me of, remember last year when Mixolis and
actually that's where I'll get my content from.
But I am going to thrash you in the 90s versus 80s.
Well, you said you'd be the 80s. Like, I don't understand.
I will push it
anyway,
real good.
So this is all coming your way, guys. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be really good. But we'll bring it to you. We'll serve it to you on a platter.
And please suggest to us any other, Oh, the comment I was going to read out was from Panashe, who said, Emma Malaika Diva apologized like a man. So I was like, because remember, he's the one who brought up the whole, is it Usher the Raymond that you're talking about? So I was like, apologize like a man. So you're saying men are not sincere in their apologies? I mean, I didn't say it. A fellow species man said it.
Oh, I get it. So okay, so that's an interesting. She said he said you apologize like a man. So meaning that really when men apologize, they're just doing it in jail, because that was what you did. It wasn't a very sincere apology. It was just like good to niti. So like when when kids commit crimes and then you say to them, have a call this, and they'll be like, oh, sorry. That's what you did.
Oh my God. You just because I didn't understand how I now had to apologize, yet I was supposed to give a clarification, which my clarification was Usher would win in any verses. However, all I was saying was JT could be like, it would be an entertaining verse, but I did not say there is a world where Usher loses.
The fact that you're putting JT and Usher in the same sentence. Anyway, let's not have this debate. The Usher Gate scandal, we need to close with action.
But one more thing on the Usher thing, though. Recently TPain came out and said Usher made him depressed. Did you see that?
Why?
Basically, so TPain, TPain the great, the legend. But remember, there was a time where TPain his sound was like auto-tune and everything.
Yeah, that's what he's known for, TPain.
But actually he sings. He's a good singer. He's a good whatever. So apparently, I think some documentary or something he was doing. So there's kind of like a resurgence of sort of TPain, because he didn't fall off, but I feel like after Jay-Z did that death of auto-tune, whatever, he kind of, people were kind of like not really, anyway. So what happened is he said one time he was on a plane, and then the air hostess came and was like, oh, Usher wants to speak to you. He was at the back of the plane, in the first class. So apparently he goes to Usher you know.
Asha, was it the back of the plane?
No, sorry, the back of the cabin that they're in, like
All
the
right.
first
On
class
the,
or whatever.
yeah, okay. Yeah.
So then TPain goes, and then this is according to TPain. TPain says that apparently, and TPain apparently stands for Tallahassee. I did not know this, but anyway, TPain says, Asha said to him, "Man, you ruin music for real singers." And that's not the worst part. Don't laugh.
Oh my God.
And then TPain says that's what started his depression. He said it started his 3-year depression. So you're king, Asha.
By telling the truth caused somebody to go into depression.
Your king, Asha, is sending people into depression. That's all
By
I'm
telling the truth. Because what we need to do is lie more in the world. Say, oh yeah, you birthed a whole generation of amazing singers. Yeah, okay.
all that. But I just report the news over here.
Okay. Well, it is what it is. I'm glad he's out of his depression.
Yes.
Okay, so was there any other comments?
No, we can move on.
Okay, so today we wanted to just share or talk a little bit about buying property in the UK. So just as we've received some comments, from you guys saying that, tell us about what it's like buying, particularly in the United Kingdom, in England specifically, because that's where we both are. And there is I will be speaking from a residential buyer, and again, it's been over 18 months since I bought, so I don't know how COVID has impacted things, but I'm willing to just talk about my experience. And Natasha, I know, has been looking into as the more girl she is, has been looking at buy to let mortgages. So I know it'll be quite good just to compare and contrast. I mean, the journey will be the same, but there'll be slight nuances in both categories, which I think we'll probably need to kind of expand on and maybe just share from your knowledge, Nat, from what you've been reading on, what you've researched on, and from my experiences. And like I said, if things have changed from 18 months ago, I do apologize. I'm just sharing my experience. I haven't done any more reading about what it entails. But yeah, so I think maybe if we just do it, if we chunk it up, like the pre-buying stage, like what is the sort of things that you need to be looking at in terms of finances. So maybe let's start there, and it'll be quite interesting for me to hear as well, because I don't know much about the buy-to-let mortgage. So it'd be really quite interesting to see if the things that you're looking at now are things that I looked at and thought about. So yeah, where do you want to start, or shall I start in regards to finances? Like, what are the main things that one would be looking for in terms of strengthening your finances to make sure that you are credit worthy for a mortgage?
Yeah. So actually, I think, like you say, that the processes for both are sort of really the same, with just like.
Yeah.
So I will say, maybe if we just talk about sort of like our experiences. I don't know if you remember that you're the person who kind of triggered me to really look at my finances. I don't know if you remember. I think it was it last year? No, 2020 or 2019, when you were saying, oh, you know what, why don't we look into the option of,
Yeah.
do you remember, like a group of us coming together and
Yes.
possibly purchasing a property? And I don't know if you remember, at the time, I
Yeah.
was like to you, girl, my credit score, my credit rating is in shambles, right? And then I remember you were like, no, you showed me like how you budget. You're like, no, you need to whatever work on it. So actually, I need to credit you. So I would say the first thing is, if you're looking to buy residential or whatever, the first thing is to just look at your finances, right?
Mm.
And sometimes it can be a bit daunting. So like with me, like my credit for years, like my credit score was just low and not good, right? So initially I was like, oh, you know what? I'm earning, but I'm not earning as much as da 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 da. But then I literally just had to do like to sit down, go to Experian, which is like the credit rating agency that I use, to be like, okay, first of all, let me not put my head in the sand. Let me find out to what's going on with my credit. Then I got my credit score, then I got like the report and everything. And literally it was little things like uh making minimum payments on credit cards or missing payments. So and you know what, it was so silly. Like I remember I had a standing order for a NatWest credit card, but for whatever reason that standing order was always after the due date, right? So although I was making money, making payments into my credit card, it was after the due, but I had never really taken time to really be like, let me find out what's going on. So I had all this like late payment thing on my, so it literally took me, like I said, I think it was 2019 that you talked about it. And I remember at the time I was like, oh, golly, like I cannot be a part of this because yo, I'll let the team down. So it was literally like, it took me, I will say, up until end of last year to really repair my my credit. And it was
Okay.
little things, making payments on time, making overpayments,
Yeah.
balance transfers, like, or on consult
Yeah.
my credit. So now I have two credit cards
Yeah.
that were transferred, and then over time, literally like 'cause now like, oh, look, your girls like now got like an ex.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
It's amazing. Well done.
yeah.
Like,
And
yeah.
it so you kind of have to be, because so it wasn't just, I wasn't thinking about necessarily house mortgage, and it was just like, okay, this is something that's been holding me back for years. So even if maybe I have, you know, if you look at my, even if I have a salary that's okay-ish or whatever, but the fact that my credit score was, you know, and I'm going off on a tangent, but I want to say, if you are a student in the UK, um getting a student loan and getting all these loans and credit cards, student overdraft, whatever, is great. However, don't be like me, because it took me years from when I graduated to even pay off like my student overdraft, and the student loan I am still paying after so many years of uni.
That's an ongoing thing, though, isn't it? I've always.
I know, but but it's now when you're now trying to look at your finances, and then you sit and you're like, oh my god. I remember like one of my friends at uni at the time, because like you'd apply for a grant, you'd apply for a loan, you'd apply for this. I remember she only used to apply for the grant, and I think the loan like minimally. But I mean, she had a dad who was sort of like helping. And I remember I used to be like, girl, Tina, we're out here balling like when the money hits the account. But things like that, you know, don't borrow more than you need to, because it can catch up with you. That's what I'll just pause for breath. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And there is something about taking control of your finances, and I think pre-buying, that's something that I did as well. So my credit rating wasn't fantastic. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't, in order to be considered for mortgages and stuff, you need to have, your credit score needs to be excellent at least. So there's certain, like Nat has already mentioned, there is there's certain, what's it called? Like companies that you can use to check your credit score. So Experian is one of them, really good. Credible is another amazing. It's Black owned, so I'm all up there. And there they give quite detailed reports as well, and give you suggestions on how you can So they'll take, for example, your lending and be like, okay, if you transfer over this debt to this credit card, for example, it will be helpful. And another one is clear score. So you need to have your hands in all pies. So don't just focus on one credit credit score company. Get yourself in like at least 2 or 3, because they'll give you different ideas as to where you stand. But I think when it comes to the actual search that they would use is via Experian. There's another one that's also quite good. That's a big one on top of Experian. I can't remember the name of it. But that's kind of the first step. I think you need to kind of know where your money is coming in and where it's going, because your mortgage advisor, your mortgage broker, those are the things that they'll be looking at. They'll look at your bank statement and be like, okay, you spend £30 a week on coffee, and all these other things. And it's something that is quite good for you to do yourself. One tip, and I don't know, I'm not saying that I am the best budgeter in the world, but one thing that I do is what I did prior to getting into the buying stage was I literally wrote down all my my debts. So I wrote them down, and I think this is probably what I showed you. So I'll put it on a Post-it note, and I'll put down the total, and I'll then break it down to say, okay, so this is how much I am owing for each, each credit card or each loan or whatever it was. And then each month I'll decide, okay, I need to have paid this amount off by this amount of time. So each month I would move that Post-it note into and the month page, like the end of the month, for example, and I'll stick another Post-it on there and cross off how much I've paid off. So I'll maybe say, okay, so this month I'm paying off £100 off this one. So then it's psychologically, it made me feel better because I could see over the time. So by the end of maybe 4 or 5 months, I had 4 or 5 sticky notes and until I got down to 0. So that was so satisfying for me. And then I think the next stage is, okay, so you're deciding, okay, so I want to buy, it's important to know that your credit score, and it's also important to know that you're credit worthy. So going to a bank or a mortgage advisor or mortgage broker, which is what I went to. I didn't go to the bank, and speaking to them to say, okay, so this is how much I earn. And this is, it's important to get a mortgage in principle, or decision in principle, as it's so called, because some estate agents will not take you seriously unless you have it in hand to say, you know what, I'm ready for this step. I have spoken to somebody about it. And in terms of my finances, this is what I'm able to afford. So back then, they used to multiply your salary by 4. I don't know I think that's probably this. I think it's been the same for the past few years, actually. Yeah. So multiply it by 4 and then tell you that, okay, we'll give you, this is how much we can give you. It may be, I don't know, I don't remember if I did 1 or 2, whatever, but I had one decision in principle that gave me a certain amount, and then I went crazy. Then you kind of start going into like, okay, so what exactly is it that I'm looking for? And is that similar for a buy to let?
Yeah, it's literally the same process. So depending, so sometimes it's called decision in principle, mortgage in principle, agreement in principle, again, whatever, it's just in principle, and you would have had to submit all your statements, blah 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 blah. And sometimes the mortgage in principle will be like for 30 days or sometimes up to 90 days. So which 90 days sounds like a long time, but actually isn't too long, because that's when, what's helpful is you kind of have a guide of, this is how much the bank can, or the lender can give to me, right? So if they tell you that, okay, 200,000 or 300,000, then you kind of know how much you can, quote unquote, play with. Again, it's all in principle, but that helps you with your offer. And sometimes what's helpful is with some agreement in principles, I don't know if you had to do this, but you could sort of kind of identify a property it could actually be the property that you want, or just like a proxy property to be like, oh, this is what, because then they'll do like your principal based on that property, but you don't really have to worry because it doesn't necessarily have to be the property that you end up going for, but it's just to kind of help you have a guide figure of how much you can borrow. So that's the agreement in principle. But what I was going to say, just skipping a little bit back on the pre-buying, so the credit, we talked about credit score, credit worthiness,
Yeah.
your statement, like try and keep it healthy because you'll need to, your 3 months worth of statement. Another thing that's going to say is just getting on the electoral register. So I don't know in other countries, like the voters roll, whatever.
Yeah. It helps.
It really, really helps because they check that. So wherever you are, try and get on the version of your electoral register. Obviously, the things I talk about are, relevant to England, but I think it probably cuts across. Okay, so we've got that. So you now got your agreement in principle. Then the fun bit begins where you're now viewing, because you now know okay, how much can be given to me. But what I was going to say also is it's really important to honestly stay within your means. I don't know if you remember, I vividly remember. Uh-huh.
Got it. Yeah, no, carry on.
No, I was just gonna say, and I'll keep quiet. I vividly remember long back. I was young at the, but like when we came to the UK, and I know this is gonna sound bad. I remember there's a church that we used to go to, no longer go there. And I was about to say which country people go to that church. I'm not gonna say, but basically, there was a woman there who was a mortgage advisor, and literally people used to go to her and like they would help you doctor payslips, right? I just remember this. Like I was young, I think I was like 20 or whatever. I couldn't afford a mortgage. And like a lot of people did that, right? A lot of people even from our community. So maybe you now lie and say I earn 60,000 or I earn whatever. So obviously the amount that you get, then if there's two of you as a couple, you get more. And then this was before the bubble, the housing crash, right? Because that's what led to like the housing crash, because there were subprime mortgages, because there were people that were getting mortgages that you couldn't afford. So what I will say is, like, really stay within your means. Don't try and get a mortgage, like a mortgage amount that is, that at the end of the day, at the end of the month, you will be struggling. So yeah. And then I know previously when we had spoken, we were speaking about like the renting versus mortgage. Remember when you're saying when you got maybe if you want to.
Yeah, I remember. Um what were we saying again? I've forgotten.
Because you were saying that when you were looking basically how much.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I was laughing, sorry, before I get to that, I was laughing with the stay within your means, because there is something about getting that decision in principle, seeing that figure on there and going on to Rightmove, going on to Zoopla, going on to all these property places and putting in your maximum as that figure that they have given you. What I will say for me is I worked, it's easier when you're doing this with someone, obviously, because you probably need to put in a lot less work. So if there's two of you, whether it's you're a couple, whether it's friends, whatever it is, it's entirely up to you how you do it. I had very little money in savings, and I worked with a figure in my mind that I wanted to raise this amount of money to as my deposit. So I worked my butt off. I'm not going to lie. It was really one of the times where I can honestly say there was no enjoyment. I was just working. And it was only up until the end when I was like, you know what, I need to treat myself to something. So I started allowing myself holidays. I started allowing myself but I lived very frugally in that time. So of course, when my decision or my mortgage in principle came, the figure was quite nice because I was working hard. And there I went off, looking at places. It's important, obviously, to decide what exactly it is you want, whether it's a house, whether it's a flat. And of course, we'll discuss the pros and cons of both. Where I was renting at that time, I was paying quite a substantial amount of rent. So when I looked at my decision in principle and what my mortgage payments would be, it was actually a lot less. So that was kind of what strengthened my decision to buy, because I was like, I could save a bit of money here in terms of, paying less towards my mortgage than what I'm paying for my rent. I think my rent and my mortgage, there was like nearly about £250 difference. So yes, there's other things to consider in that I am now further away from where I was before. And I'm paying probably that's £250 in transport costs. But at the same time, I'm also in the comfort of my own house. Like if I wanted to drill a wall on the thingy, then I could do that. So I think it's about weighing up those benefits. The staying within your means was, I went crazy. Like I was like, okay, so, at first I was quite, I knew what I wanted. I wanted a house. I wanted a garden. I wanted good sized bedrooms. That was important to me. I wanted a bathroom with a window. So that was very important to me. And, it might seem like quite a small thing, but here in the UK, the majority of places don't necessarily have a window in the bathroom. And that was, it was like, oh, I really want that. I wanted a separate kitchen. So I had all these things that I wanted. It was like a wish list, right? And I went off with my decision in principle in hand and went off viewing houses. I would literally view proper houses, upstairs, downstairs, front, back gardens and stuff. And it was only until somebody at my work, who was actually unfortunately going through a divorce at the time, was just mentioned, she just said, I don't remember the context of the conversation, but she was like, oh, my husband has left and the kids have left. So her kids were in university. And she was like, I'm left in this 4-bedroomed house, which is really expensive to run. The garden is a freaking mess and I just can't afford to run it. And that kind of made me kind of stop in my tracks. I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean that it's expensive to run? But then you start thinking, okay, so if it's cold in the winter, you are going to turn the heating on, and is it going to heat up the whole place? Are you going to go off turning off radiators because you want it to be warm in one particular place and in your bedroom? So it made me rethink about the running costs. So I started looking a little bit more into that. So looking at how energy efficient is a place. So most places, fortunately, here in the UK, if you're looking for properties, they'll give you it's called an EPC, like the certificate. So it tells you how efficient that place is in terms of running costs. And it'll give you a bit of like, okay, so if you're living here, these are what your monthly costs would be. So I started taking that into consideration a lot more. And what else? But yeah, it was fun and games. Like, there's this place that I went to see, Natasha. This place I will never forget. This was like a 4-bedroomed house. It was in London. It was within my decision in principle means.
Sorry, can I just stop you there? Can I just stop you there? Hey! Ladies and gentlemen, sorry, you had a 4-bedroom house in London was within your range. Hey!
But wait, no. Okay, so the next stage is talking about how a property is advertised. So this property was offers over. And I hadn't really considered that, when people say offers over, they're looking at least 15, 25 grand more than what is on there. So this place was offers over, but it was offers over right my limit. I was like, oh, I could do this. I went to see 2 times, but it was just impossible. I think it went over, like I've forgotten how much it was, but it was just very expensive. So yeah, so it is very important to stay within your means, even with your decision in principle, consider that if you have been putting in extra work, will you want to continue putting in that extra work to get that money after, or do you want to just live comfortably and enjoy the place that you're in? Because that's the other thing, like you don't want to be working constantly to try and meet your mortgage.
No, I'll come back. I like the way you curved that offers over, because why am I here suffering when I have a friend? Hey, in London, Sadiq comes London.
Listen, when I tell you, Natasha, I had to, when the important thing is, could I have got that property? The answer is probably no, because it went well over the offers that it had stipulated. So if it had said offers over 200,000, it went well over that. It was a beautiful, beautiful place. And I couldn't have gone over my decision in principle. Do you see what I mean? But it's important to stay within your means. So even if you can just take a good 10 grand off that so you can have space to breathe, it's really important. Like if I got that place now, I'll be looking at having a gardener, I'll be looking at, all these other extra costs which I hadn't factored in, and we'll come to extra costs because there's extra costs involved in buying.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I will pin this one. It'll come. Well done, my friend. Hey, that's my friend. Okay. And then another thing to talk about is the whole leasehold versus freehold. So in the UK, like a freehold property is ideal because most houses are on freehold properties, which mean that it's either terrace house, single unit, detached. On a tangent, when when I when I came to this country, I didn't understand. Like I was like, of course, a house is detached. What are you saying? What are you calling a house?
England was like, hold my cup.
Why are these things joined together, and why are you calling it a house? Like I did, but anyway, that is UK for you. So a freehold is ideal because you own the land that the property is on, so that is yours, and your expenses are the running of your house, council tax, and those are sort of like your big overhead costs, versus a leasehold. Most people who are in flats or maisonettes, some houses are leaseholders. So basically, if you are a leaseholder, someone else owns the land, right? Normally, like it will be a property developer. They own the land, and then you are purchasing a leasehold over that property. So the leasehold could be for 100+ years, it could be for 900 years. The most ideal thing is, depending on where you are, some people maybe just prefer flats. Like for example, if you're in London, like a city like London, a flat may be just more affordable, like a freehold may not be. The downside of the leasehold is that you will pay service charge, or sometimes they call it maintenance charge, and you pay ground rent. So ground rent is like, okay, I'm renting this property that is owned by the freeholder, and then the service charge is to cover the upkeep of the building, so the cleaning of communal areas and everything. Some places are really, really good, but sometimes you get really terrible freeholders, you get really terrible property management companies. And actually, when I was looking recently, like literally you could be paying £200 plus, and that's on top of your mortgage, like for a leasehold. Another thing to kind of point out is, so when I was looking recently at property, like you see a property and be like, oh my God, it's really cheap. And then it'll be like, okay, it's a leasehold. And then you look at the leasehold years, and it's like 60 years. And you're like, okay, 60 sounds long, but actually most lenders will not lend to you if the leasehold is 80 years or less. So ideally, you're really looking for,
Yeah,
I would
100 plus.
say 150, like, because
Plus.
Yeah, because you want to also be in a position, if you stay in that property for 10 years, that when you're selling it, the length of the leasehold is attractive.
Mm.
So you really need to look out for the length of the leasehold. It is really important, but where you can, freehold is ideal. But in some places, it just may not be.
Yeah, and there's also like some maisonettes offer a share of freehold as well, so which is also like it's also ideal. I
Mm.
think you're absolutely right. There's so many things to consider with a leasehold. I am in a leasehold. Um, I would also say that it's quite important to have a mortgage broker or mortgage advisor, whatever you call them, who is going to be really straight up with you. Because I saw a few properties with leasehold, cheap properties, and you don't think about these things. Like I wasn't asking, oh, this property is very cheap. Is the leasehold, how many years is left on the leasehold? But he would investigate things for me and turn around and be like, no, that's not a good property because the leasehold is less than, 100 years. So he said to me, it was like, just look for something with 100+ years because, consider yourself that even if you are 35, 30, you be in the property for 10 years at least before you want to move on. So you want to, if you are looking to sell it or whatever it is, you want it to have a good amount of lease to make it more attractive to whoever is going to buy it. But it is definitely one of those things that you don't you don't really or think about that much for like what it means to be in a leasehold. And I'll give an example. When I first moved in here, the lift that we have, so my flat has got I think it's four floors. I am on the kind of lower ground floor, so I never used the lift. But the lift broke down, and we all had to chip in to get this lift back up and running. And repairing a lift is not freaking cheap, guys. Like, if you are looking for jobs in engineering, get into the lift business because, we all had to share that cost. Recently, they sent us a letter saying that, oh, we are looking to refurbish the communal areas, thinking about stripping the carpets, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hell no. I like this shade of brown. I like it. I like the little worn out carpets here and there. But, it's all these things that you need to consider. Because even if you say no, like there is 9 other tenants in this flat, not other tenants, 9 other people who own this flat. So they will be like, yeah, no, we'll put it in. And fortunately enough, the management company that runs the flat I think they've given us good options and said, oh, it's not going to cost crazy amounts. But these are things that you need to be considering. They will ask for the leasehold, like the ground rent and the service charge, all at once. So you pay for it 6 months in advance. So when you first move in, you need to consider that you need to pay 6 months in advance. And the way that I go around it, so I pay the 6 months in advance, and then I pay every month so that I'm not forced or caught up with a bill of goodness knows how much after 6 months. So there's ways in which you can just go around it as well if you are in a leasehold. But yeah, I think ideally if you can get a freehold, it's absolutely ideal. And another thing, actually, speaking about freeholds and leaseholds, is, just listening to other people's experiences. So I remember before I bought this flat, somebody that I had also worked with just in another job had said how they lived in these new builds, like, I don't know how many, many floors, and something like the lift broke down, and it was quite a lot of money that they were asking each of the people to pay. So consider that as well, that the bigger spaces, the more expensive it's going to be for you to pay up for AMA repairs and the costs. So for us, like right now, they'll say that we want to change all the carpets on the floors, and we're sharing that between 10 people. But if they're doing a bigger flat or bigger building, then sharing it amongst more people, you'd hope that it balances out, that you're paying not so much, but just things like that you need to consider. as well.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing that I was going to say is with the new build and stuff, also, you just need to be a bit careful because sometimes these new builds, depending on where you are, I feel like some of these property companies cut corners and the material that they use to build is kind of substandard. So a big thing that's happening, particularly in London, I don't know if it's happening across the rest of the country, is this cladding issue. So cladding is literally, man says, like the material that is placed on like a built structure or surface. So like around the building. So there's been real issues with cladding because that's something that happened with Grenfell. Like there was a cladding issue. So you now have a lot of people who purchase these new build properties that seem to have cladding that is not, that isn't robust and doesn't really hold up. And now there is a fight between the government and the property developers because the property developers are saying, well, no, the material that we used at the time was approved, but then government is saying, well, no, you need to do more to make people safe. And then what's happening is, if you own the property, no one, lenders are not willing to lend against it because of that.
Yeah, and it's a costly exercise. Like I know somebody who's got a bill of like over 20 grand because it's a three-way thing between the builders, the government, and the people who own the flats. And I think there's a lot of responsibility, like the builders are placing on the buyers to say that, well, it's your responsibility, you need to fix it because you live there and it's your safety. So many people are now stuck with mortgages they can't sell because there's this bill that you need to kind of, you can't sell a house and like, oh yeah, by the way, as you're buying it, and it's mostly flats, and I think it's flats with 5 floors and above that are affected by cladding. You can't then sell your flat and be like, oh yeah, by the way, there is this 20 grand, so it automatically adds 20 grand to whatever you know price that you want to get. So those are the things that you need to consider. So look at what materials they're using for cladding if you're buying a flat. Very, very important.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the next thing? So we've talked about pre um pre-buying. We've talked about the buying. So for a buy to let, like, would you still kind of go to a mortgage advisor, or do you necessarily need to go to a bank?
You could,
Different.
you could go to either. You could go to either. So you could go to a mortgage advisor or you could go to your bank. And it's literally like the same process. So as you say, it's something that I've been looking into. I've been spending some time with some old friends of mine that I've been friends with for a while who are just for context, that these Asian girls I used to work with, and if you know anything about the Asian community here in the UK, they're very big on property. And so I've kind of like been spending time and looking into like property investment. So hey, one day, doors will open. But yes, it literally is the same process. So you go, same thing, but then the only thing is, like, in terms of the deposit, it's significantly higher. So it depends.
How much higher?
Minimum, it has to be about 25%.
Gosh,
Yeah, of the
it's a lot of percent.
yeah, a quote, yeah, like 25% of the property. Um, Also, I guess, which is the same, like, because I was gonna say, like, now when you're making an offer, because we talked about the things that you should look out for.
Mhm.
Um, Also, you just want to see the trend of the property that you're purchasing, right?
Yeah.
So you want to see which over time, has it had an upward trend? If a property is on sale now for 200,000, for example, and 7 years ago it was the person who bought it for 148,000. You'd be like, okay, that's a significant jump over time. But if maybe 7 years ago the person purchased it for for even more than they're selling, that'll make, there's alarm bells. What's going on? Like,
Yeah.
what's up with the property? So those are things that you kind of need to look out for. You need to sort of understand what's happening in the area. Are there developments that are coming, is there an event that's come around? So for example, in the UK, there's this thing called high speed rail. So which means that from places like Crewe, which is kind of up north, there'll be a fast train which is like 55 minutes to London. So actually, if you can't afford London prices, you may want to look at, like, okay, up north, what are areas that are, thriving, places like Manchester, places like anyway, I'm not giving advice. You guys can do your own research. But those are things you need to look out for. And then maybe we can go to just cut it short, like then when you have to make the offer, right?
Oh, wait. I think another thing to consider as well, and from my experience, is if you're looking at the where the property is, look in relation to your work as well, because the other money eating or money guzzling expense is transport. So so if you're considering things need to balance out. So if you're considering going to if you're considering going to Manchester, then consider how much your season ticket is going to be. I lived in Zone 2, and my transport links was just so fantastic. And I unfortunately, I couldn't afford to buy in Zone 2. The way London is, there's zones 1 to 6, and then there's outside London. The further you go from zones, so zone 1 to 2 is, I don't know, 100 and something odd pounds a month for a monthly ticket. And then it goes up the further you move away from central London. So consider that as well, like where you're working and how much it's going to cost you to get into work. So one of the things for me, I moved from zone 2 to zone 5. And that was obviously a step up in terms of travel costs. But like I said before, it was my rent and my mortgage kind of balanced out. I paid less in my mortgage, and I used that as traveling. So I think these are important things to consider as well. How long it's going to take you to get into work. Look in, like, spend time on that. If you've seen a property that you like, look at, City Mapper or whatever it is, TFL. Look at what links, how you're going to be getting into work, how much more time is it going to take you to get into work. Small things, but for me, these are things that were important to me. Look at proximity to the station. How are you going to be getting to the station? Do you need to get a bus? Are you going to be driving there? Can you walk there? Because all these things, then kind of add up on your costs.
Absolutely. Oh, and then one more point. Guys, this is not exhaustive, but it's things that now that I'm thinking about, right? As I've kind of been on a journey, is if there's a property that's been on the market forever, like, you kind of have to think to yourself, why has this property been there for a long time? People have viewed it, but no one's made an offer. So you need to be really, really careful. You need to also look out for things like damp. But those are things that your surveyor will do. But it's just got me thinking, because there's a particular property that I've been looking at that is still on the market, and I'm just like, oh, I made a good decision, because there's a reason why this property hasn't moved forever. So that's something to kind of consider.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you're making the viewings, it's asking those questions. How long has a property been on for? You want to be pernickety about things. If you're buying somewhere, you're going to live forever. It's not, see that property a few times, see it at different times of the day, look at what it's like. Are you close to a school? Are you, because all those little things affect the way, especially now we're working from home and stuff. Who sees the school bell ringing and stuff? Do you want that? Or maybe that is something that you want because you're thinking about family and I want to be in a network of good schools. So all these things. But when you're viewing the property as well, just literally walk around, make notes on your phone or make notes, because you'll see few properties that you want to compare and contrast. I think working from a wish list, so saying that, the minimum I will accept is this, but there's properties that you'll walk in and be like, oh, you know what, I don't mind. Like I said, one of the things I wanted was a bathroom with a window. So right now, my second bathroom, or so I've got an ensuite and the main bathroom that doesn't have a window, but I compromised on it because I actually loved the space, and I don't necessarily need to be the one in the bathroom without a window. So so little things like that actually are important. You want to run the taps. How is the power, is it a power shower as they've advertised? Because sometimes you open the tap and it's just little dribs and drabs of water. Why is that? Why is that? Why is there low pressure? You want to walk around in the corners. You want to open the kitchen cupboards as well. Look in the cupboards, the storage cupboards. You want to, if you can, be annoying and say, how quickly does the heating go on? That's also important. How warm is it? And that's a question that I didn't ask when I moved into this flat. How warm is it? Because I like to be warm. Now you're constantly having your heating on, because the flat is not well insulated and all these things. Check if there's anything that is broken. If they've advertised for something, underfloor heating. I was caught out on that. Came here and it only works in certain areas of the flat. Whereas these are things that you could have, even if you find faults, you can then negotiate on the making an offer, which I think we're going on to next.
Yeah. No, and then the making of an offer.
The fun bits, guys. And I want to be people will take you on a rigmarole. When I saw this flat, like, I'm not going to lie, I parked my car, I walked in, and I was, that way, I was already like, I'm not going to like this place, because you walk in the flat, the main entrance, and then you have to go downstairs. I was like, I'm not doing a basement flat. I'm not going to be buying a basement flat. There's not enough light, blah, blah, blah. But I came in and there was, there's light, there's a little patio. So it ticked a lot of my boxes. But so when I came to see it the second time, so obviously the estate agents, they are friends with the people who are buying. Like, they will have more of a relationship with the sellers than with the buyers, because they want this property to be sold, right? They don't really care about you. They'll make you feel like they care about you, but they want this property sold at a however much price so that they can get their percentage profit. So when I came to see it for the second time, they were like, oh, we've had loads of people coming to view it. It's not going to be on the market for that much longer. So just putting on that added pressure. But it's important to say, you know what, that's fine. I'm here to see for the second time. I'm seeing a few other properties, blah, blah, blah. If I'm going to make an offer, I'll make an offer. The way the making an offer worked then, assuming it's still the same, is that you send an email. So it has to be in writing to say that I'm interested in this property at blah, blah, blah. And this is the offer that I am putting in. Always, always, always go marginally, like a good margin lower than the asking price, because there's always room for negotiation. Where it can come to bite you in the bum is if there's a few people who are making offers. And I wasn't privy to what the other people had offered. So they won't tell you that, okay, so A has has offered 50,000 for it. They'll just tell you that, okay, the house is for 100,000. How much can you offer? So if you can go in lower, and then they'll say to you, oh, actually, you're the lowest person on there, because there's somebody else who's offered higher, but we can't tell you how much they've offered. So it becomes, and you don't want to, I didn't want to be involved in a bidding game. So I put in my offer. I went significantly lower, and I said, this is how much I can put in. What also helped is when I went to see the property the second time, I met the buyers and developed a bit of a relationship with them, and, asked them about the place, why were they leaving, blah, 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 and, complimented them on how well they kept the place and stuff. So I don't know if that maybe added to my benefit, because I wasn't involved in a bidding war, but I may as well have been the only person who'd put in an offer. You just don't know, because they'll be like, oh, somebody else is putting in an offer tomorrow, But I put in my offer. They wanted a certain amount. I put in a lot lower than what they wanted, and they accepted the first time. And that was my offer journey.
Yeah, no, you're right. The only thing that I would say, just because like I said, I've been kind of like looking now and talking, well, working with some friends who are in the process, you have to be really careful like now, because it's a seller's market. Like properties are being snapped. I don't know where people are getting money. Properties are being snapped up like to like it's gone, it goes on the market, it's gone. And obviously remember, like estate agents will have relationships with previous people that have been looking, so they may tell them a day or two before it goes on the market to say this property is there. So what I would say is, yes, definitely, like always try and offer a little bit less, but if you love the property, like don't play too many like don't like, if something is on the market for 250, don't then come and say I'm gonna offer 235. You know, because they'll be like,
You
get
can say 175.
yeah, like you know, at least like, you know, have a decent, you know, maybe be like, okay, I'm offering 4 grand less because I feel like the bathroom may need to be updated, and you know, this is like, it has to kind of make sense. But if you love it, especially now, yeah, like don't play too many games, like just offer. And then you kind of have to be cool, because you'll know when estate agents are like interested, they're like, okay, we'll put this to and then they'll normally call you back and they'll be like, um yeah, you know, so the seller has 2 more viewings over the weekend, just wondering, you know, if you could, you know, maybe go up by,
Yes, yeah.
yeah, or whatever. And normally when you hear that, you should know that you've got them. So you should be like, no, I'm fine, I'm also viewing other properties, I'm happy for other people to view, whatever. So then they'll be like, oh, this person's confident. So you
Yeah.
have to be,
Good options. Yeah.
you have to, it's literally like the art of negotiation. You have to be calm, and then you make the offer, and then hopefully your offer is accepted, and then you you do a little dance thinking yes, but then the hard work begins.
Buy a house, they said. Not buy a flat, buy a property.
The
I
hard
think
work
the
begins.
the fun and game begins because you now need to engage in with conveyancers. So these are the legal or the lawyers who will be dealing with the sale of the property on your behalf. Accepted, and then it's now like, okay, the hard work actually starts. You know, you need to engage with conveyancers, and these are the people, the legal practitioners will be acting on your behalf on the sale of the house. A good place to find conveyancers is, there's like a website called, what's it called? It's like a money supermarket. I think you go to moneysupermarket.com and just look for conveyancers, and it will literally just search all these people, and they'll tell you. So you put in how much you've offered for the property, how much your deposit is, etc., etc., and then they calculate everything for you. So then you can then pick the person or pick the company that you want to go with. You know, it doesn't need to be somebody that you see physically, because you know everything is done online nowadays. They'll send you emails, you need to sign and return documents. It's all, you don't need to physically go in and meet somebody. So I think my conveyancers, for example, were based in up north somewhere. I never met them. It was everything was done via emails, but they will then calculate that, okay, so you need to pay things like searches. They check for things like if there's like a water feature near you, like no, like a stream or lake, what are the chances of you being flooded? How close are you to asbestos mining? So all these things come up and they add up, you know. So you need to pay them a fee. And I'll be really honest and say that I hadn't factored this in. I hadn't factored the conveyances in. You have to factor in your stamp duty as well. Fortunately, in the UK or in England, there's a stamp duty holiday, but I think it's coming to an end soon. So you need to properties, if you're a first-time buyer and you're buying a property, I think it's under, I want to say 350, I'm not too sure, then you don't pay stamp duty. Or is it 300,000?
It's
But
250.
any 350.
250, I think.
It's 250.
Let me check.
Gosh, because that's not anyway. So you prepare yourself to pay. Prepare yourself to pay stamp duty because wow, wowzers, 250. And if you're buying outside, unless you're buying up north somewhere. And then, so yeah, if you're a first time buyer, then you are exempt. But if you're buying for the second time, whether it's a buy to let or whether it's your own property, you'd be charged stamp duty. So the conveyancers work all that out for you. And then they will be like, okay, so you have this extra bill that you now need to also work towards paying at the end. Yeah, but it takes time. I think from the time you put in your offer and your offer is accepted, it takes time, agreeing on a completion date. It can take, and if you get into a property that is in a chain, that process takes even longer. And what that means is that the people who you are buying from there's the sale of their property is dependent on someone else. Is dependent on someone else. How do chains work? So if you're buying, if you're selling somewhere,
mm-hmm.
and you are looking to buy somewhere else, so you are then dependent on the sale of your property going through. That will affect you as a person who's buying that property, if that makes sense. Because all that needs to go through first. So that can add months to the sale of your property. But it can take, you need to just give yourself a good 3 months, I would say, before moving in, and before you are given the keys, and just be prepared for any extra costs that will come, that the conveyancers will bring up. Oh yes, we discovered that you live near a nuclear mine and we need to do extra searches, so you have to pay £50. You have to pay extra this. You need to pay the service charge in advance. You need to pay. So there's just a lot. You're just pumping a lot of money. And what you need to be mindful of is that because your mortgage or your decision in principle is set, or they are still looking at your finances. So you don't want to be now taking out extra loans to cover these things. So if you can, just try work extra if you can, get money from, and then you need to be careful as well about money coming in large sums into your account. Like if you start borrowing, for example, oh, Natasha, borrow me £1,000, because you now need to explain that. Why is this person putting in £1,000 into your account? So if you are being given a gift towards a deposit, you need to write a letter, or the person who's gifting you the money needs to write a letter saying that they are gifting you this money, they don't want it back. This is the sum. So, you have to kind of really explain everything that is going in and out of your account. So you just need to be very mindful of that.
Yeah. I was just going to say on the stamp duty thing. So it was no stamp duty up until the 30th of June. So tomorrow, right? For properties up to 500,000. So which covered quite a few people, right? But from the 1st of
June,
yeah. So anyone who was buying property should have and then for buy to let it was 3%, which was significantly lower. But then from the 1st of July, so now it's going to be phased. So from the 1st of July to the 30th of September, right, you pay no stamp duty on the first 250,000, right? And then the next amount, you pay 5%. So for example, if you purchase a property that is 300,000, the first 250 0, so you're paying 5% off 50.
The 50,000.
So it's still better. And then, but then from the 1st of October, the 0% goes down lower to 125. So the next window you have to try is between the 1st of July and the 30th of September.
Mm.
Those who have ears, let them hear.
Oh yeah, and I'm just reading this as well. So the other thing is just getting a property survey. So your bank or the people who are offering your mortgage or who are doing your mortgage will do out an evaluation. Just to, they just do a basic check basically. But you want to get a property evaluation, which is again extra money, but it's good money to spend because they will detail out what the issues are. If there's, for example, mold, or if there's structural issues, they can just say to you, they'll give you a detailed report and say these are the issues. And you can then use that. If it's a property that you absolutely love and you're willing to oversee some things, then you can use that as a bargaining chip to kind of like, oh, you know what, these are the issues that you have. Can we just go lower on that price? Yeah. And what else?
I think it's just
No, carry on. It's just what?
No, like just to prepare for those costs, like the conveyancing, surveying, like there's all these costs. Like, oh, we want to do a snagging survey, we want to do a home buyers report, we want to do a full structural report.
It all costs money. It's like, it sounds all fair and fine, but it's extra cash.
They're like, oh, £300. They say like,
hey,
exactly.
And for them, they'll say like, oh, we need £300. Here's the account. They'll want that money then and there. They're not going to want you to be like, oh yeah, I need to
payday.
They want it there and there, and you want to show that as well, that you've got the financial capabilities to be paying for these things as well.
Yeah.
So you just prepare yourself financially, prepare yourself for the time as well that it takes. I'm sure there's loads of things that we've missed out, but
absolutely. But hopefully, just we did say we're sharing our experience, and hopefully it's when I complete my dream to be a property investor, I'll come and tell you guys more about that world, about flipping houses and refurbishing, and
that'll be good.
All that sort of stuff.
Because that is like the next stage, isn't it? I mean, and so another thing, so once you get your mortgage, they'll give you like a term. So you need to choose whether you're doing interest only or repayment only. But that is normally for the first time you buy, it's normally for like 2 years. So, or you can choose 2 years or 5 years, depending on whatever interest rates they are. And then you get the opportunity to remortgage. So things like, if you're now considering, how much has my property gained in value, that is a good time, because you then get the opportunity to get figures to say that this is how much your property is worth and this is how much you have earned, or not earned, like earned in interest or whatever it is. But that is also, I have found out recently, is another cost, guys. All these things, it's just money. Everything that you try, there's nothing for free in this world. So
nothing for mahala.
There's nothing for mahala. But yeah, but then it's fun and games.
Yeah, but a lot of wealth in this country particularly is tied in property. It's tied in bricks and mortar. Which is why we're not experts by any means, just sharing our experiences. And like Xolie said, hopefully at some point I can maybe even bring my friend Amina, because
that'll be good.
Then we can talk about the business side of it, because people are killing it out here. But again, you know what you are doing. It can be
you really do.
Terrain, and I think it's something that our community, like, why
do we not? I mean, I recently, just for the fun of it, I was just sitting and thinking, what would happen if I wanted to move out, and I don't know, just maybe, like, I was interested to know how much rent rental income I would get. So for my flat. And I had a guy come around. It was free of charge, and I was working from home. So I was thinking, why the hell not? The guy came around and he looked around and told me, he's like, oh yeah, I could easily offer. He asked me, he's like, oh, how much do you think? He was like, well, if I can cover my mortgage, it'll be fantastic. And the figure that he told me was, again, way above my mortgage. So I was thinking, maybe I should move in with Natasha, just go and squat her there for a little while, then move to somebody else and just actually get some cash through for the flat. But so there's all these things that you are then open to when you're getting to your 2-year mark of remortgaging, if you've chosen a 2-year fixed term. But yeah, and also I think another important thing is, guys, when you get your keys, you need to prepare yourself that you're going to be broke, and you're going to be broke for a few months, because it's like you move in. I moved in, I had no sofa. I'd lived in fully furnished flats for as long as I could remember. I had no sofa. I didn't own a TV. I had no beds. So it's literally, and because you've just spent this huge chunk of money paying for your deposit, paying for the conveyances fee, including your stamp duty, paying for all these other bits and bobs, you find that you're very, very skint. Food becomes the only priority. Everything else just waits. I moved in January, so on top of that, there was January disease. So prepare yourself mentally. If you're on cabbage, cabbage is actually quite nice if you fry it in a little bit of butter.
in a bit of le perk.
In a bit of le perk, and like, oh my goodness, this chala bangs of cabbage. But yeah, so you need to prepare yourself for that as well. So unless you are so organized that you have a little budget for your home expenses, because what I was quite careful of not doing was, after I cleared off my debt, was to kind of go plunge myself further into debt. So I did things in phases. I got the sofa and then paid it off, then got the beds, and literally it was mattress on the floor first, and then the bed came like a few months later. But yeah, people don't know that you're sleeping on the floor. Sleeping on the mattress on the floor, or just sleeping. I actually did sleep on the floor for a little while because I didn't even have a mattress. So it's just literally brace yourself for that. You're in the comfort of your own home, but it's the journey is ongoing. It took me a good, when did I start inviting people over? I think maybe 5-6 months, because it takes time. You order your sofa, and I didn't want to buy a sofa secondhand because I know what people do on sofas.
What do people do?
I know what people do on sofas. So I bought my sofa brand new because I want to buy it. So it takes time to get that in. You don't order it one day, it comes the following day. It takes time. It's the same with mattresses. I was like, I'm not buying a mattress secondhand. But there's certain things that I bought secondhand. My bookshelf, which I absolutely love, I got secondhand on eBay. Yeah, and that's it.
No,
but yeah,
you have done marvelous, darling. And then one last thing from moi is, obviously, when you get your property, this is important. You make sure you have all your insurances, but
yes,
you have your mortgage assurance, which covers you in the unlikely event of your death.
Very important.
Paid up and passed on. So you'll be surprised the number of people who unfortunately do not take out a mortgage assurance policy, and then they die, and then their family just have to like sell the place because the lender wants the property back. So just make sure you take that out for your peace of mind, that if anything were to happen to you, your family, they're not crying twice.
I think we covered this a bit in our finance episode. I've forgotten which one it was, but we had Twape Tila on it. So yeah, it's very, very important. Builders and contents insurance, important again, unless your property your management company is providing that for you. You want contents insurance, and it's just, again, looking on the internet, on money supermarkets, you can just pay something off Gawan. You don't need to worry about it till the end of, until a year's come and gone. But it's really it's very important.
Very. The contents insurance thing makes me laugh. Like, so I remember when I was working at Barclays, right? Because they used to want to make us sell things. Like, this was the time of people were like me selling PPI and all types of insurance, right? So this is when I knew I need to leave this place. I was like, what on earth is happening here? So like I was on the till, and they were like, what do you call it? Little houses, like model mini houses, like on the till. So you would say to somebody, because when you do their thing, like it will show you on their profile the products that they can be offered, right? So you'd be like, oh, can I ask, do you have contents insurance? Then obviously some people indulge you because of like, oh, and then you'd say, so imagine your house turned upside down. So you would turn the model thing, you'd be like, so everything that would fall, that is your contents insurance.
Are you serious? Bloody hell.
It was a whole script. It's like anything, but I mean, yes, it makes sense because yes, contents is literally, if you were to turn your house upside down, everything that would fall, and contents, all the fixtures would have to be covered by your building's insurance. But that's what I say. These people are crazy.
It's good. I didn't know that. I didn't know that everything that falls would be covered by. I thought it was things like your, gadgets, your electrical stuff, etc., etc. So if they can insure even the tables that I'm leaning on, yeah,
anything that would fall, your gadgets, everything, but then your fixtures, like your bath power, everything would remain. Contents.
Okay. No, that has been good. I feel like it was in depth. If there's anything that we've missed, guys, do comment, let us know. Anything that you feel is also important for people. If you've been through the process yourself, either buying to let or residential mortgages, do let us know as well. Like, what challenges did you face? What tips you may have for other first-time buyers. Like, let us all support each other. It's very important. Let's share.
Absolutely. And then one thing for me is, guys, again, we say this at the beginning, don't put yourself, like, stay within your means, right? And actually, if maybe getting a property or getting on the property ladder doesn't make financial sense for you, like fine, like there's no, don't feel pressure to be like, oh my God, I'm getting older, whatever. You know what, you could stay with your parents or you could whatever and save so much money that by the time you have, you're paying off 50% of your mortgage and so, the worst thing you can do is get on the property ladder when you cannot afford it. And then you are just struggling.
Yeah, do you know that is very important? I thought that was one of the main things that we would talk about in the start. There is no pressure. If I'm honest, again, I was 30. How old was I? I was in my late 30s. This is me being honest. Like, I was in my late 30s. I bought nearly 2 years ago when I bought this property. And if things hadn't been right, I wouldn't have even bought them. I would have waited. It's important to just remember to stay in your lane, do what you can, because don't put yourself under pressure because so-and-so is doing this and so-and-so is doing that. You also don't know how many times a week I eat cabbage. And just because I have a roof over my head, I don't eat cabbage. I kid. I'm kidding.
Absolutely. Like, don't put yourself under pressure. Also,
don't.
How can I say this in a nice way? Okay. Like, if you're taking out a joint mortgage, fine. But don't put yourself in financially abusive situations where you end up taking out a mortgage with someone who will, because at the end of the day, if anything happens, it's both your names on the mortgage. The lender doesn't care whether you say, no, me, I've been paying the mortgage. This person had them like, we ain't party to this. Like, it's up to you guys. So I think it's really, really important, like, also do, because that's why a lot of people will end up like coming together. And obviously we've been fortunate that, you know, we've been able to kind of do it on our own. But that's not everyone's story. But don't feel pressure to then like just take out a joint mortgage with, you know,
with somebody
who yeah. So it's really important that even between the two people, like
there's understanding.
There's understanding. If you need a contract, you
not
can.
just verbal understanding. It needs to be written down.
Yeah.
So I think that's, you're right, Matt. It's so important. Don't feel under pressure, guys. You know, things. You need to you make a plan. You know, make a plan for the next few years and say, okay, so in the next 5 years, this is how much I'm going to save, and do the best that you can do. I again, just to, and this will be the last thing I say, is when I was working for my deposit, I worked my butt off. I wasn't enjoying. I lived frugally, you know, and it's. I feel like now it's worthwhile, but at the same time, it's like I missed out on so much. Like, you know, it was one of the best summers we had. I was in the middle of my dissertation as well, so there was just so much going on, so stressful. It's not an easy thing to do, especially if you're doing it on your own. So don't feel pressured. It's and if you are going to do it on your own, good on you. Just be prepared for the amount of work that you need, and hopefully you've got the bank of mom and dad to help, or the bank of somebody to help you, because you know it's not easy. And reward yourself if you are going to work your little butt off. Just reward yourself with something. I took myself to Bali.
Hi, Mina, this anointing of rich friends, I wanted to flow. Now I'm touching
Do you know how cheap my trip to Bali was? Like, honestly, that's another topic for another day. But it was, I went to Bali. I was meant to go with 3 other so people from South Africa came over, were going to Bali. And I was like, okay, if people can get this in rands and still come over, have a good time. One of the girls flew from South Africa in business class. I was in economy. You know, it's important to stay in your lane. You do what you can do. But I was there in Bali. Doesn't matter what it is, and what of
in the middle aisle. So started your stuff to Bali, baby.
And there I was shaking my nyash.
Yeah, in the yacht.
But yeah, no, there is no pressure, guys. So hopefully this helps somebody. Do message us if there is anything more you would like to know.
Yes.
If there's anything that we can help with.
Absolutely. So this is like our mini like adulting series. So if there are any other adulting hacks, let us know.
For sure. But yeah, we're back with the fun next week.
Yes. Okay. Signing out.